5 years ago or so, I made a video called How to Soundproof a Wall. It's one of the most watched videos on my channel with over 1.5 million views. But since then, I've learned a lot more. I've tested materials, built rooms, torn down walls, and measured noise with decibel meters. And now it's time for the 2025 update. This video is going to cover renter-friendly solutions, mid-range DIY upgrades, full-on professional wall builds, and I'll back everything up with real sound test and decibel readings. But first, let's quickly go over the things that doesn't work so you don't waste your money. Because there's a lot of garbage out there that is marketed as soundproofing that flat out doesn't work. First up is acoustic foam panels. Yes, some places it is marketed as soundproofing panels, but they look like they should block sound, but they don't. They're not a soundproofing product. They're sound absorbers. They are used to reduce echo within the room, but they do almost nothing to stop sound from getting through a wall. You can cover the entire wall with foam panels and your neighbors will still hear your conversations and you'll still hear their conversations, unfortunately. The next one that you might see on Temu or Amazon is soundproof wallpaper and stick-on panels. These get a ton of views on those viral DIY hack videos, but they're basically a waste of money. They're thin, light, and full of marketing fluff. Soundproofing, it depends on mass, and these don't have any of that. If you can roll it up or fold it with one hand, it's not going to stop any real kind of noise from getting through your wall. So before fixing your wall problem, you need to know what kind of sound you're actually wanting to soundproof. There are 3 types of noise, and if you don't know which one you're trying to soundproof and you just slap an extra layer of drywall, you might be surprised that it doesn't work at all. The first of the 3 main pathways is airborne noise. This is sound moving straight through the wall assembly, drywall, studs, and into the next room. Voices, music, TV, these airborne sounds pass through surfaces when there's not enough mass or proper isolation. Next one is structural noise or vibration. This is a deeper kind of noise. It's the low-end rumble from a subwoofer or a neighbor walking heavily in their unit up above. These sounds shake the walls, the floor, even the framing, and those vibrations travels straight into your space. You can't block that with foam or fabric. You need to physically break the connection. And the third one is flanking paths. This is where sound finds its way around your wall, through ductwork, around door frames, into ceiling joists, or through the electrical outlets. You can have the most soundproof wall in the world and flanking will still let noise sneak in if the rest of the structure isn't treated. If you understand how sound is getting through, then you can design the right solution, and that's exactly what we're doing in the next part, which is budget-friendly and renter-friendly solutions. Because if you can't bust through the wall, this is where to start. This one, you don't need power tools, you don't need to get a permit, and you definitely don't need to spend thousands of dollars. Let's start with the most effective product you can use without touching the wall itself, which is mass-loaded vinyl. Mass-loaded vinyl, or MLV, is a really dense, flexible sheet of material that's designed specifically for blocking noise or absorbing noise, and it's really thin. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick and it's quite heavy. Some are ½ pounds to 1 pound to 2 pounds, and that's per square foot. So they're packing a lot of dense material inside that rubbery sheet of material, and that will help block a lot of noise. And one thing is you don't need to install it inside the wall. You can actually hang it right on top of your wall, kind of like a thick curtain. If you're renting, you can use heavy-duty adhesive hooks, curtain rods. The key is to cover as much of the wall as possible. And ideally, you should seal the edges with fabric or weather strips so the sound doesn't sneak in all around. And I'll have links in the description below of everything I talk about in this video to make it quite easy for you to buy. Next option is soundproofing blankets. Yeah, these are similar to moving blankets, but some are made with sound blocking materials inside, like fiberglass or mineral wool. You can hang them just like curtains, use a tension rod, command hooks, or even clip them to a curtain rail. They don't block as much sound as MLV, but they're cheap, easy to hang, and help muffle higher frequencies like voices or light music. You can even layer 2 or multiple together for better results. The third one is double layer curtains. This is a great budget method. Hang 2 layers of curtains, 1 blackout curtains, and behind that, either a moving blanket or a thinner MLV sheet. It looks like a normal curtain setup, but there's real mass behind it. This looks specifically well if the noise is coming through a shared wall near a window, or if you just want something that looks a little cleaner than a giant black vinyl sheet. And also, they use these when filming movies to not only absorb noise, but since there is soundproofing material inside, they also block some noise from going through. So they do work. And finally, seal up all the small gaps and cracks. Even if you don't own the place, you can still make a big difference just by sealing tiny air leaks. Use removable weather strips along the baseboards or edges of the wall if there are any gaps. For electrical outlets, you can grab foam outlet gaskets. They're dirt cheap and they help block sound leaking through the wall cavity. You can even use something called putty pads, which I'll talk a little bit more later in the video, but you can use that in behind the faceplate to really block the noise from coming through. But before working on the electrical outlet, you should definitely shut off the breaker. Now remember, none of these options will give you perfect silence. That only comes with a full rebuild, but stacked together, they can take the edge off. And when you're dealing with annoying voices or a thin walled apartment, even knocking down 8 to 12 decibels can make your space feel way more livable. If you own your home or you're doing a renovation and have full access to the wall, this is how you actually soundproof it properly. What I'm about to show you is how to build a wall that doesn't just reduce noise, but stops it. And just like the budget or apartment or renter's way, there is no single material that does everything. What works is layering, mass, air gaps, isolation, and sealing. This combo is what gives you a serious reduction in sound. So here's how to build it step by step. If the wall is open, the first thing to do is fill it with insulation. I recommend rock wool because it's denser and better at absorbing sound than standard fiberglass insulation. It won't block noise on its own, but it's a solid start, especially for things like voices and mid-frequency sounds that bounces around inside the wall cavity. Just make sure there are no big gaps. You want the insulation snug, but not just crammed in. Next is decoupling, which is all about stopping vibrations. If your drywall is screwed directly into the studs, sound, especially bass or impact noise, travels straight through the wall. And what would cause that would be heavy traffic. And there are 2 common ways to decouple the wall to block that sound, which is a resilient channel, and these are thin metal strips that you screw horizontally across the studs. The drywall is then mounted to the channel, not directly to the framing. It breaks the direct path of vibrations. But the catch is, they have to be installed properly. One wrong screw into one stud and you've short-circuited the whole system. The second way that you can do this is isolation clips with hat channels. These are more advanced and more effective. You screw the clips into the studs, snap in the metal channel, then mount the drywall to the channel. These are ideal if you're dealing with low frequency noise like footstep noise above your head especially. You don't always need decoupling. If you're mostly hearing regular talking or light TV, just adding mass might be and probably will be enough. But if you're hearing footsteps and that's what you're wanting to soundproof, you need to decouple. If it's not footsteps or traffic noise or anything that vibrates, then skip this step altogether and save yourself some money. And move right on to step 3, which is once you've handled the insulation and possibly the decoupling, the next layer is mass. That's what prevents airborne noise like music and voices from passing through the wall. I recommend combining mass-loaded vinyl with drywall. First, apply one sheet of 5/8 of an inch Type X drywall, which is heavier than standard drywall and better at blocking noise. Not that much more expensive either. After that, you'll want to add one layer of mass-loaded vinyl sandwiched in between another layer of 5/8 of an inch drywall. This will create a really good soundproof wall that gives you both mast and dampening, and it avoids the mess of compounds or liquid adhesives. Next step. This step right here, sealing, is where most DIY soundproofing jobs fail. You can do everything else right, but if you leave even a pencil-sized gap, sound will find its way through. It's like building a dam and leaving a few holes in it. There are three key areas to sealing: the perimeter of the wall, any penetrations or cutouts, and especially the electrical boxes. First, where you want to start is if you're going to fool around the electrical outlets, you will want to shut off the breaker just like earlier. Before adding your insulation, before adding your drywall, I should have actually talked about this before that. This should have been, it's part of sealing. So where I'll start is with the electrical boxes, not necessarily the electrical outlets. All the boxes that are the light switches and the electrical outlets, you see them, there is a lot of holes in them, and those holes will let noise right through. Now you can buy something called putty pads. They were essentially used for fire prevention. If there was a short or a fire that started in the electrical boxes, then it would hopefully stop the fire right there and prevent it from spreading through the building. But they also work well at blocking noise because they block all those holes in those electrical boxes that would regularly let wires through. Not all holes are filled with wires. So using putty pads on all of those electrical boxes that you can get your hands on, that's one of the first things that you should do in regarding sealing. Now, if you can't get behind the electrical outlets, that's when you want to do the same thing as you did in the apartments. You just want to open the electrical cover, put something on the cover to seal it, or just seal the holes, anything that will seal that gap, because you've soundproof the wall, then you've cut a hole in the wall for those electrical boxes. You have to seal those holes the best you can. When you're done, you need to seal around the perimeter. If you added an extra layer of drywall, you don't want to just add your baseboard. There is a gap between the flooring and the drywall. You want to seal that. You might not think that it's anything, but any gaps anywhere, you want to seal it. What you'll want to use for this is acoustic sealant. It doesn't crack over time and it stays rubbery. So with every vibration, people walking, it's not just going to crack, letting noise in. It's guaranteed to stay rubbery for quite a while. So that's what you want to use before adding your baseboard back onto the wall. And an optional build, if you're trying to soundproof a studio, a drum room, or something where total soundproof isolation is your goal, you can go even further. You build a second wall, either a completely separate wall from the first one or spaced a few inches away. You treat both walls the same way: insulation, mass, sealing, and now you've got a double wall system with a decoupled air gap between them. This is how professional studios are built. It's overkill for most people, but it's the gold standard if you really need silence. But let's talk money. I've shown you a range of different ways to soundproof a wall, from renter-friendly quick fixes to, well, what you just saw. What does each one actually cost? The first one is from $75 to $200. This setup is for renters or homeowners who just want something temporary or low cost. And if you're creative, you can easily keep it under $100. If you want something that looks cleaner or cover a large wall, you might spend closer to $200, but even at that level, you can still cut down on voices, music, and TV noise, and it's all completely removable. The mid-tier setup would be $300 to $600. This is the setup for homeowners or handy renters who want something more permanent, but don't want to tear out drywall. It won't be total silence, but it's quite a huge step up from just hanging blankets onto the wall. This is great for bedrooms, shared walls, or offices where you need to block out regular daily noise. And you might be wondering, how much does it cost to fully rebuild a wall the way that we did earlier? Well, $900 to $1,500. This is for people doing the full renovation or building a home studio. If you want serious soundproofing and a much quieter home, this is the level that actually delivers. If you're still not sure where to start or what's worth your money, here's my advice. Spend on mass first. MLV and drywall. Then focus on ceiling, acoustic caulking, and outlet covers. If you're still hearing bass or vibrations, add decoupling last. And don't waste money on gimmicks like soundproofing paints or peel-on sticking wallpaper. After all this, you might still have a few questions, and the questions that I mostly ask is, well, I've talked about it before. Can I soundproof a wall using acoustic foam? And the answer is no. It's to make the room sound better. You don't use this to soundproof the wall. That's a popular question. The next one is, if I use a double wall, is it going to give me 100% soundproofing? The answer to that is no. Nothing that you can do yourself or hire somebody and just spend $1,500 will give you total soundproofing, but it will make the biggest difference if you're trying to block out the noise from in and out. If you're trying to record something, that is the best way to do it. Another one is, what if the sound is coming through the ceiling? Is soundproofing the wall going to make a difference? Well, the answer to that is not really, because what you'd want to soundproof is the ceiling. You'd want to use the same methods on the ceiling as you used on the wall. Since it's thumping noise and vibrational noise, then you'd want to use the resilient channel or the isolation clips to decouple, and that's what you want to do. Soundproofing the wall will not make a difference. Next one is, can I soundproof just one small area of the wall? If you have a big wall, small budget, if I just do half, is that going to make a difference? And the answer is no, not really. If you just put a small patch on the wall, the noise is just going to go around. It's not really going to make that much a difference. It's not really worth spending your money unless you're willing to cover the entire wall. That's it for soundproofing the wall in 2025. Hopefully you found value in this video. If you did, share it with friends, give it a thumbs up, and are you a subscriber? If you're not, you should subscribe to this channel. But before you do all that, there's a video right here that you should watch. That video is, well, what if it's not the wall? What if it's a door? Watch that video to soundproof your door and keep it on a tight budget, because $20, you'll be surprised at how much noise I can stop with $20. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.